given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Guys, great news. Keith Hellwig's got another book on the market. It's called In Their Own Words. The book is now available on paperback and Kindle on Amazon. Guys, this book is very, very important. It's a book that tells our story because it's us writing it. What Keith did here was just a great way for our voice to be heard. And Keith's going to be on momentarily to discuss his book, why it needed to be written, and what motivated him to write this book. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tear Talks for you brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. We're going to go to our sponsor, and when we come back, we're going to meet Keith Hellwig, a great author, and we're going to discuss his new book, In Their Own Words. All right, stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
All right, guys, and we are back. Real quick, today's video is brought to you by Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit GuardianRFID.com for more information. And guys, just as a further reminder, my book, Inmate Manipulation Decoded, is also available. You can find that on Amazon as well. So, without further ado, let me bring in Keith Hellwig. What's up, Keith?
Hey, Anthony. Thanks for having me on your show. I certainly do appreciate it.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Keith. Keith, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience again?
Sure. My name is Keith Hellwig. I retired as a captain from the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. I had 36 years in with the Wisconsin DOC. For 23 of those years, I also worked as a patrol officer. And when I retired, I decided not to retire. I decided to continue working as a patrol officer. So I do that for 2 small communities now. During the course of time, I've written 3 corrections-related books now. The first 2 I wrote, the first one was No Place Like Home, and the second one is Morning Will Come. Now, I call those books fictional reality. They're based on actual events that have happened in prisons, actual events that have happened to me. I made them in a fictionalized form and changed names so nobody could sue me. So I got done writing those books, and I know Anthony wanted to know one of my motivations for writing my new book, which is called In Their Own Words. One of my main motivation for writing it was when I wrote my first book, No Place Like Home. I got letters or emails from people all over the world who said, that could be my prison. That could be my experience. I know those inmates. I know who you're talking to. I know what you're talking about. So that kind of inspired me to go forward with this project. And I've received feedback from officers in at least a dozen states, Canada, Ireland, New Zealand. I believe there's one from Australia. And it's pretty interesting to read about other places, other people, other places, and the officer responsibilities.
I just want to read the description that can be found on Amazon. This is a book that is by and about correctional officers, not only in the United States, but from around the world. These stories were submitted by people who have been or are correctional officers and are sharing their experiences into a world that few people experience. The stories range from humorous, compassionate, to horrifying. The stories are told in the words of their authors. In some cases, the authors of the story have agreed to have their names accredited with the story. In some cases, they have chosen to remain anonymous without acknowledging where they are from, and I have chosen to honor that request. Though the book appears under my name, it's not my story alone. It's the story of correctional officers from around the world our story needs to be told. Our story needs to be told. How powerful is that to you, Keith?
Well, that's why I put in it. The book is under my name, but it's not my story. I have some stories in there, but it's not my story. It is our story. And each of those officers had an individual, unique experience that they wrote about. For some of them, there's one from an individual in Missouri that I found particularly striking. It was a tragic event. I'm not going to describe it. If you want to hear it or if you want to see what it is, buy the book. But after he had written the story and sent it to me, a couple days later, I got a text message from him saying, thanks. I'd never really talked about this in detail to anybody, but writing it out in detail really helped me get it off my mind. So for me, that was just great that he's able to get that off his mind, that finally he can reckon with the disaster that happened, with the tragedy that happened on that day.
Hey, Keith, how were you able to collect the stories for this book?
Well, I started my own private Facebook page called In Their Own Words, and I invited people that I knew were correctional officers. Everybody that's on that page is a correctional officer, and I just put in a request for stories, and I told people that I was going to be writing the stories. One thing I wanted to mention about my book, like I said, this is not just my book, this is our book. So therefore, I've decided that 20% of all profits I make off this book are going to be given to charitable organizations. Now, you might not agree with the organizations I chose, but that's the way it is. If you want to donate to an organization or another thing, go ahead and write your own book. But I'm going to be giving 10% of my profits to the Wounded Warrior Project, and I'm going to be giving 10% of the profits to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Like I said, this is not my book. I didn't make it just for me to profit. I made it for people to realize what officers do around the world. There's some horrible stories in that book. I told my mother-in-law I'm not going to let her read it. And I don't think my wife and kids will read it either because of the reality it represents. It tells things that the general public is going to find absolutely abhorrent, but it's the truth. It's the fact of what we deal with on a daily basis in prisons across the world. Whether it's suicide, whether it's self-mutilation, and there's humor in the book too. You got to admit there are times our job can be fun. There are things we can do to make it fun, and not everything in the book is drop dead serious, but it is their stories. It's the stories that they chose to send me. I did not change the essence of the stories. I may have corrected some punctuation or spelling or things of that nature, but I did not change the contents of the story. I did not change the intent of their story. So it is their story. It is our story.
Hey, so for the people that read it, so you do have a general audience, but you also have those that work in the profession, not just correctional officers, but I'm assuming this book could also be a pick up and read for those that are correctional staff, the non-uniform staff members. What do you want them to get from it?
I want them to get from it sometimes the stress that officers face on a daily basis that you may not see sitting in an office, in a social worker's office or whatever. And I don't say that to distract from the job they do. We all have an important job when we work inside of a facility, but often the correctional officer is the person that is the most unseen by the general public. They're the most unseen by a lot of the staff. And I just want people to realize what they do. I'd also recommend this book, not just because I'm the author of it, but I'd also recommend this book to people that are considering going into corrections. I'm sure there's some people that are considering going into corrections and read this book and they're going to say, oh, no way in hell am I going to go into that. But there are going to be other people that read the book that are going to say, man, there's a lot of stuff that goes on and, I want to be a part of it. So I think it's a great learning tool for anybody who wants to go into corrections. I also think it's a great learning tool for anybody who has a family member that's in corrections. Now, it's the language in it is very X-rated. It's in their own words. We all know how correctional officers talk, so it's in their own words. And some of the words, there's vulgarity in it. There's violence in it. In fact, it was funny when I started the Facebook page on it. People were sending me the stories on Facebook, and I received a notice that I was violating Facebook's community standards because these stories contained violence, and they threatened to shut down the whole page. So I had to have people email me their stories to my own personal email rather than put them on the page because Facebook would have shut down the page because of the violence involved.
And guys, the reason why I wanted to have Keith on the show real quick is because this is a book that needs to get out there, right? I mean, this is a book that's going to have knowledge as well. I mean, yes, there's stories in here, but those stories are from experienced professionals. And I believe that if you are a correctional officer and you pick up this book, there's going to be a lot of tidbits that you can take with you as you work your way through this profession. Even if you're on the channel and you're new coming in, or you want to come in, this is a resource. When I first started corrections, I didn't have resources like this. So to know that we have people from the profession, putting their time into these books, and we want to make this a career for ourselves, we need to pick up these books and read from the people who have walked the walk. Hey, Keith, do you have anything you'd like to say in closing?
Nope. In closing, I'd just like to say I think it'd be a great book for anybody who is considering going into corrections to read. I think it would be a great book to read at the academy to learn the reality of what's going on in the prisons and what it means to be an officer. And there are parts in the book that show the true brotherhood of officers. And I just think it would be a good educational tool for anybody that's considering going into corrections, anybody that's in corrections and really hasn't gotten into it yet. Family members, to wake up family members, why their husband or wife might come home and not want to talk. There's just a lot of different reasons, I think, for people to read this book. And I think it's really important to get our story out. As a matter of fact, as soon as I announced that the book was being published, I bet I got contacted by 20 different officers that said, I'd like to tell a story too. So, depending on how things go with this, there may be a volume 2 of it because people want their voices to be heard, and I want their voices to be heard. I'm not putting my name on it for egotistical purposes or anything else. I'm putting my name on it because I'm the one that's taking the time to publish it and go through the stories. But like I said, it's not my book, it's our book.
And guys, that's why I do Tier Talk too. It's great to have a venue where our voices could be heard. And that's the key. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you brave men and women that work in correction. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. The bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. If you get a chance, go on Amazon, pick up In Their Own Words. It's available right now. And if you can't wait for the paperback to get delivered, you got Kindle. You can get it right now on Kindle. All right, guys, as always, stay safe.